Today I'm going to be reviewing the complete Korean textbook, which is a beginner to intermediate course. It's a part of the Teach Yourself collection, and it's written by Mark Vincent and Jae-hoon Yoon. So, with this book, this is what I personally used to start studying Korean. It's really helpful with at the start of the book. It gives you background information, some like pronunciation guides about like consonants, vowels, and they give you a bit of practice there. So if you are a complete beginner, this would be an ideal place to start because you are getting that basic information in this book. However, they do say at the back, if you are an absolute beginner and you want more of that background information, that you should check out the Get Started in Korean book. So this book I personally use. It was very helpful, and what I really liked about it was the structure of the book. So each chapter is divided by 2 dialogue sections. So you can see at the top here, this is the first dialogue and this would be the second one. So with the first dialogue, they'll give you vocabulary for that. So that is given here. You have the bit of vocabulary to look at, and there is a audio component online as well, so you can listen and try to imitate the speaker, and you learn new expressions as well there. And then you have the actual dialogue, and that also is an audio file that you can follow along with. And then there's questions that accompany that dialogue. So for example, question 1 here, how did the speakers say hello to one another? So you'll listen to that and answer as you go, and it's just to check your comprehension of it, of what's being said or written. And at the back as well, they give you translation of the dialogue, so you can always double check, as well as the answer key is also at the back, so you can always double check your answers there. Then after each dialogue, there is a language discovery, which this book really hones in to, is that this thing called the discovery method, where you read the dialogue, you notice things for yourself, you become more aware, and then basically after you've looked at the dialogue, then the grammar points that you may have noticed, they explain it, which it makes you more aware of the language. So here is examples of language discovery, and there's all different like subheadings there. So for this one, they have Korean names, talking to friends and talking about them, Korean verbs, polite sentences with yo, and who are you talking about, word order, to go, to do. And then throughout that, they give you language tips, and they also have a few practice questions, and they do explain it quite well, and they give you a lot of examples as well, and the English translation, so you can make those connections. Then in the same chapter, they'll have another vocabulary builder for dialogue 2, and then they'll have dialogue 2, and it's the exact same thing with the language discovery coming right after that. Then once you've done that, you've looked through all that, then there at the end of each chapter there's practice, so you can see there practice questions that you can answer through, and the answer keys are at the back. And yeah, so it's really good. There's a lot of like pictures, lists, situations, so you're getting a lot of different ways of thinking and answering. And then you have after the practice, you have the test yourself, and the test yourself is a bit harder. So here it's like you have to unjumble the words given to create a coherent sentence. Mainly it is translating longer sentences or phrases from either Korean to English or English to Korean, so you're getting that practice. And then at the very end you have a nice little self-check. It's just here, so you can check that you've learnt it, or maybe you can put a question mark, something that you can come back to. You can put an X if you like hardly understand it at all. So the self-check, for example, here there's usually about 5, so I can say hello and greet people, I can talk about where I'm going and why, I can ask questions, so on, and it all relates. At the start of the chapter as well, I forgot to mention on this very first page, they give you a little outlook of what the unit is about. So in this unit you will learn how to, and it points it out, so greet people and say where you are going, order drinks and snacks, and there's a few more there. So like make polite requests. So if you just look at the unit at a glance and you're like, oh, maybe I want to learn that, then you can go on to that chapter. And they also link it to CEFR and those kind of links. So can ask people for things and give people things is an A1 link, and can catch the main point in simple announcements, that's an A2 link, and can find specific information in simple material such as menus, and that's another A2 link. Then they give you a little snapshot of the culture, so that's here at the front there. So this is about eating and drinking in Korea. And what's really good about how they set this out, which I really like, is that it is, of course, written in English so you can understand it, but they do sprinkle a few little Korean words in there to get you starting to think in Korean and getting you exposed to vocab that will be coming up in this chapter. So for example, it says here they're talking about soju, the Korean vodka. It doesn't have a particularly strong taste, but it is frequently drunk mixed with mekju, and in brackets they say beer, to create somek. And then they keep going. So mekju on its own is very popular, so we know mekju means beer, so you're getting that kind of repetition, and hopefully that like kind of sinks in. It's another way of learning the vocab in context. So yeah, that's really helpful. So this book, it is for beginner to intermediate, so it's a really great place to start. I really like the structure of each chapter. All the chapters are exactly the same in the sense that you have your little snapshot of what the chapter's looking at. You have your vocabulary builders, language discovery, and your practice and test yourself. So all of them are designed like that, which is really helpful. And then after halfway through the book, so chapter 7, you get a little review, so you can check that you understand things from chapters 1 to 6, and they give you a few new grammar points to learn as well. And then right at the end of the book, you have chapter 14, which is also a review. So for the second half of the book, you're reviewing that information. And then at the very back as well, you have a Korean English vocabulary dictionary, and you also have an English to Korean vocabulary dictionary, so that's really helpful as well. So yes, that is Complete Korean by Mark Vincent and Jae Hyun Yoon. It's part of the Teach Yourself collection. I highly recommend this book if you are beginning. Of course, if you are an absolute beginner, you can go to other maybe websites or something to get your foundational knowledge, to get more out of this book, but definitely this is a really great place to start. So yeah, so that's my little review on this book, and I hope that helps.